will do the full. So we discussed yesterday that GST is an indirect tax. Number one, GST implemented with effect from 1st July 2017. This is the second thing. It is replacement of 17 old indirect taxes which were applicable in India by central government as well as different state governments. So this is now GST is one nation, one tax. And Jammu and Kashmir is also involved into it. So means GST is applicable in Jammu and Kashmir also. So in all the states, same law prevails now. Not like earlier that in different states, different VAT laws were applicable. But now from 1st July 2017, in all the states, same law, just like Income Tax Act. We know Income Tax Act is same throughout the country in all the states. Similarly, now we have one direct tax and one indirect tax. And the name of that indirect tax applicable is GST, to which we call it as tax on goods and services, or both. I explained you what is the meaning of the word both. I will not be repeating it today. So tax is applicable on goods or services or both. This was, and then we discussed why we implemented GST in India. What are the reasons? What made the government to replace 17 established taxes and then to bring a new tax? Meaning thereby there was some problem in the earlier 17 taxes. Because of those 17 taxes, we wanted to replace it by a single one because of its complexities. Number of taxes were more, compliance cost was high, administration cost was high, and people of foreign countries as well as of India wanted that there should not be so many number of taxes which create law complex. So these were the few reasons which we discussed yesterday, that these are the reasons for which we wanted to replace, and to replace those state government and central government worked together for 15 years. Means they went on discussing for 15 years and then only they have come now. So this is the biggest indirect tax reform, in India after independence. So this was all what we discussed yesterday. Clear? Now we come to the last item which we were discussing yesterday, the shortcomings. Last shortcoming was, I'm not presenting the PPT today. First we will discuss that 15 minutes for that only, because that is a lengthy item, and thereafter we will put PPT on. So what does it say? Full ITC was not available under old indirect taxes. Now the question is, since all of you have never read indirect taxes, that is why. First of all, I need to tell you what is the meaning of the word full ITC. Abbreviation of the word is ITC. It means input, I for input, T for tax, C for credit. Input, tax, credit. What does it mean? What is input tax and what is the credit of that? So first of all, we will understand what is input tax. Now suppose you are doing a business. In doing a business in Odisha, suppose you are doing business in Odisha. Now for doing that business, you would like to purchase certain things and you want to sell those things. Suppose you are a trader. For that purpose, you will buy something, means you will purchase the goods. Suppose you are dealing in bicycles. So you purchase bicycle from a distributor and thereafter you are a wholesaler. Thereafter you sell it to a retailer or different retailers. So one person is the distributor of bicycles. You buy from him. When you buy from him, suppose you have purchased 1000 bicycles. On that 1000 bicycles, suppose 1000 rupees each. So this will come to 1 lakh of rupees. Now when you will buy those products of 1 lakh of rupees, that supplier or the seller or your distributor will levy VAT on that if he is situated in Odisha itself. If he is situated in Odisha, then he will levy tax on that, which is called VAT, value added tax, or state VAT tax. Suppose rate of tax is 10%. So when he will raise a bill on you, he will make the invoice saying 100 bicycles of 1000 rupees each, price is 1 lakh of rupees. Now add, what he will do? He will add tax on that. Say tax rate is 10%. This I am talking of VAT, which was in operation before 1st July 2017. It was in implementation before 1st July 2017. So at that point of time, he would have charged you state VAT, value added tax. Suppose rate is 10%. So on 1 lakh, 10% comes to 10,000 rupees. So what he will do? He will write in the invoice 100 bicycles at the rate of 1000 is rupees 1 lakh, add VAT at the rate of 10%, 10,000 rupees. So he will raise the bill of rupees 1 lakh 10,000 on you and you will pay him 1 lakh 10,000 whenever you feel like. Now, the question is, this tax which you have paid on purchases is called input tax. Input tax, right? So this input tax means it is tax on goods coming in. It is tax on goods which are coming into you. This is called input tax. Similarly, now you sell those goods. When you sell those goods, then these goods are going out. So tax on those goods which you collect from your customer is called output tax, right? So on purchases, you pay tax, which is called input tax. On sales, you charge tax and collect it from the customer, and that is called output tax. Now the question is, suppose you sell those goods of 1 lakh of rupees in say 1 lakh 10,000 rupees by earning 10,000 as profit. You have earned profit of rupees 10,000 and added to it. So you will sell it for 1 lakh 10,000 and charge VAT, and your customer is also in Odisha. Please note, this is very important to know, that your supplier was also in Odisha and your customer is also in Odisha within the same state. So what you will do, when you will raise the bill on your customer, then you will write sale value of 100 bicycles at rupees 1100 each, 1 lakh 10,000 rupees. So you have sold those goods for 1 lakh 10,000 rupees. And you will charge state VAT at the rate of 10%, which will come out to be 1 lakh 10,000, 10% equals to 11,000 rupees. So in your bill, you will write down sale value at the top, 1 lakh 10,000, and then charge value added tax at the rate of 10%, 11,000, and your total bill will become 1,21,000. So now this 1,21,000, you will give this bill to your customer and customer will pay it to you. Now see, your output tax, which I discussed just now, output tax means tax on sales, is 11,000 rupees, which you have collected from your customer. And this tax is payable to government, right? This tax is payable to government. This is not your money. This is money you have collected on behalf of the government from your customer, and this 11,000 is payable to government. But the law provides, the law says, government says, you need not to pay this 11,000 rupees to me. Government says, don't pay 11,000 which you have collected from your customer. You reduce 10,000 which you have already paid on your purchases. You reduce 10,000 which you have already paid to your supplier on purchase of those goods, and pay to government only 11,000 rupees minus 10,000 equals to 1,000. So government says, don't pay 11,000 to me, reduce 10,000 which you have paid on your purchases and pay the balance of 1,000 only. This is called value added tax. Means you are to pay tax only on value additions. So in this case, in this transaction, what was your value addition? You have sold the goods of 1 lakh rupees in 1,10,000 rupees. You have earned 10,000 as profit. So what was the value addition? 10,000. So you are supposed to pay tax to government only on 10,000. And what is the amount on 10,000 at the rate of 10%? It is 1,000. So you were to pay to government 1,000, but government has prescribed a formula how you will calculate that 1,000. You reduce the input tax from your output tax and pay the balance. So output tax was 11,000, input tax was 10,000, difference was 1,000, which is equal to 10% of the value that you have added in while selling those goods. Clear? Okay. So you will reduce 10,000. So here ITC, input tax credit. Now I'm coming to that word, input tax credit. While calculating your tax of 1,000 rupees, you have taken credit of the input tax paid by you. You had taken credit of 10,000 rupees, which was IT, input tax. So now it becomes ITC for you. 10,000 is become ITC for you, which can reduce from 11,000 and pay the balance. So in this case, see the situation in this case, entire ITC of 10,000, which was with you on purchases, you are allowed to reduce it from your output tax 11,000, meaning thereby full ITC is available to you. I'm coming to this word. While the shortcoming I explained to you is full ITC was not available. But in this case, which I have discussed with you, full ITC is available. Now I'm going to tell you what are the circumstances where full ITC is not available. Now, full ITC is available when you are buying the goods from the same state and selling the goods in the same state. But suppose you have made the purchases from a state other than your state of registration. Suppose instead of buying those goods from a distributor of Odisha, you might have purchased those goods from a distributor who is located in a state other than Odisha. So when your distributor or your supplier is situated in a state other than Odisha, means in a different state, then he cannot charge state VAT on that. That is the law. He cannot charge state VAT on that. Instead, he will be charging central sales tax. He will be charging a different tax called central sales tax. That central sales tax may be 2% or it may be 10%, depending upon whether the buyer is able to give a C form to the supplier or not. Normally, whenever a businessman makes purchases from another businessman, he is entitled to issue a form to him that I am a registered person and therefore you charge me only 2% sales tax, central sales tax. So now, suppose you purchase those goods from a person outside the state, and that person will, when he will raise a bill on you, he will write value of the bicycles 1 lakh and he will charge central sales tax at the rate of 2% against C forms, and 2% will come out to be 2,000 rupees. Now this 2,000 rupees is a central tax. Now when you sell these goods in your state, then you will be charging VAT on that output tax at the rate of 10%. Question is that 11,000 rupees which you have collected on output tax on your supplies, can you reduce that 2,000 rupees as a central sales tax which you have paid on that? Answer is no. In the earlier case, I told you that entire 10,000 rupees you can reduce it from your output tax, 11,000. But when it is a central sales tax, even if it is only 2,000 rupees on purchases, this central sales tax government does not allow to reduce it from 11,000 rupees. And in that case, you have to pay the entire 11,000 rupees which you have collected from your customer to the government of the state. Meaning thereby, if the goods are purchased, if the input tax or inputs are from a state other than state of your registration, in that situation, it is a central sales tax applied in the bill, and that central tax is not allowed to set off against the output tax. That is why in the PPT, the line used was full ITC was not available in the old regime. In the old regime, full ITC was not available because the central ITC is not available. Clear? Similarly, suppose you have paid another central tax which is called central excise duty. I told you yesterday that central government used to apply, used to charge, used to collect central excise duty on manufacture of certain goods. When you were manufacturing, central excise duty will be levied. Now this central excise duty is levied whether your supplier is in the same state or he may be in a different state. Suppose instead of making purchases from a distributor, you have made purchases from a manufacturer. And that manufacturer on his production was paying central excise duty. That central excise duty he could have claimed from you. So when he will sell the goods to you, then he will collect from you the central excise duty as well as the local VAT tax if he is in your state. Now what will happen? If he has charged two taxes in the same bill, one is central excise duty and the other VAT, then credit of VAT will be available, but credit of central tax, central excise duty will not be available. Meaning thereby, central tax was not allowed to be credited against the local VAT output liability. Meaning thereby, this is another example to explain to you that entire full ITC in the earlier regime was not allowed to be credited against the output liability. What is the effect of that? Please see what is the effect of that. Effect is that if no credit is allowed against the output tax, then the input tax will become cost for the buyer, because that credit will not be allowed. That will become cost for the buyer. And when it will become cost for the buyer, he would like to collect this cost from a customer. And when he will collect it from customer, then the selling price will become more. When selling price will become more, then the output tax levied will also be more. For example, cycles of 1 lakh of rupees, suppose excise duty levied is 10,000 rupees when I made the purchases. So my cost becomes 1 lakh 10,000 rupees instead of 1 lakh. My cost will become, because this 10,000 is not allowed to be adjusted from the customer. Therefore, the 1 lakh 10,000 will be my cost. When I will sell it, I will earn a profit also of 10,000 rupees. So my sale value will become 1 lakh 20,000 rupees. And on that 1 lakh 20,000 rupees sale price, my tax will be how much? 10%, 12,000 rupees. My output tax is 12,000, while earlier the output tax was only 11,000 rupees. So when input tax credit of central taxes is not allowed, then my output liability increases because of that input tax credit. So when my output tax will become 12,000 instead of 11,000, that 1,000 extra is going to the government. And that is called cascading effect of tax. This word you have to remember, cascading effect of tax. It means tax on tax. The input tax for which I have not received the credit, I have added to my cost to make, and it is included in the sale price. Therefore, tax charged by me from the customer is 1,000 rupees more as compared to my earlier situation. So when there is no input tax credit allowable to me, things become costlier for the customer because of tax on tax. So 1,000 rupees is tax on tax. That is called cascading effect of indirect taxes. So what the government wanted, while bringing GST into implementation, government wanted that this full ITC, which was not available earlier, we want to give the benefit of this full ITC to all businessmen. So that, what will be the effect of that? So that there is no cascading effect. There is no tax on tax. And this 1,000 rupees which the customer was paying extra, now he need not to pay extra, and our selling price will be reduced by rupees 1,000. So customer will be benefited if the entire total ITC is allowed to be set off against the output tax. Things will become cheaper, less costlier for the customer. So it will be a benefit to the customer if full ITC is available to him. Meaning thereby, a full ITC which was not available prior to implementation of GST, now in GST, we will give the full credit of ITC. So since it was a lengthy discussion, that's why I have not kept the slides or PPT before you, so that you can understand by watching me, as well as I can understand whether you are understanding or not. So I'm sure it must have been clear to you. You can write down if you have understood, because the others have stopped their videos. They can write down in the chat box, yes, they have understood or not. Yes, Ruchika, okay. What about others? Yes, Swati is okay, Akaksha okay, Smriti okay, Ashutosh okay. Very good, very good, very good, very good. Excellent, excellent. So you got understand. So far as full ITC, which was not available earlier in GST, we will try. We will try. I'm not saying in GST it has been allowed. We will try that full ITC is available to the customer, so to the seller, so that he can sell the goods at a cheaper rate, at a lesser price, so far as customer is concerned, and customer gets benefit of it. So GST will be beneficial to customer also by way of reducing the prices. Now we will come to PPT and we will start from there only. If anybody wants to raise any question up to this level, then we can consider, otherwise we will move forward. Output tax, this is in GST. Previously, means earlier indirect tax regime, previously credit for CST, excise duty, service tax was not allowed against VAT. As I have explained you, CST is not allowable, excise duty is not allowable. Similarly, service tax was also a central tax. Tax on services. This was also a central tax, and this was also not allowed to be carried over, credited against State VAT Act. Therefore, it also increased cost of supplies, and it was having a cascading effect also. Now, in GST, what happened? Both center and states are allowed to levy tax on goods as well as on services. Previously, state could not tax services and center could not tax the goods. Now look, what was the law earlier? Before implementation of GST, that is from 1st July 2017, prior to that, what happened? That center was allowed, central government was allowed to tax only on services, not anything else, not on goods. And they were allowed to charge central excise duty on the manufacture of the goods. On goods, on manufacturing, by way of central excise duty. Otherwise, on services, they were allowed to charge state service tax. So, but the state governments were not allowed to charge central excise duty, and state governments were not allowed to charge service tax also. Therefore, what does it mean? Central government has certain powers, state government has certain powers. Meaning thereby on the goods, both the parties, both center and state were not allowed to levy tax. On service tax, both state and center was not allowed to levy service tax. Now, because of this reason, many services or many goods were left to be taxed. Therefore, tax base remained the smaller. Government wanted that tax base should be larger. Extended tax base should give more revenue to the government, and therefore, with that revenue, government will be able to do the bigger projects, to carry on bigger projects for the welfare of citizens of the country. You are aware why taxes are levied. You are well knowing, because you are already dealing with Income Tax Act. You are studying income tax in graduation also. So what was the purpose of levying taxes on the citizens of the country? The reason is, with that tax, government is able to carry on the welfare projects of the country, such as making of the roads, making of the flyovers, metro projects, bus service, hospitals, etc., etc., or whatever are the projects which cannot be carried on by individuals or the smaller groups. Those groups are carried on by the central or the state government for the welfare of the citizen. So taxes are always collected for welfare of the citizens. Now its next point says, it will apply, GST will apply to all stages of the value chain. at all places means right from the manufacturer to distributor, distributor to wholesaler, wholesaler to retailer, and retailer to consumer. This is the supply chain. And in all the supply chain, there will be value addition. In earlier laws, prior to 1st July 2017, central excise duty was leviable by central government only on production, only on manufacturing. What does it mean? It was a single point levy. After manufacturing, on those goods, there was no tax called as central excise duty. So it was finished there on itself. But in VAT, it was moving to from one supply chain to the other supply chain. Here also he says in GST, there will be nothing like that tax will be levied at first point only. No, wherever there will be a value addition by any supplier, till the goods reaches to the consumer, we will go on taxing the same at all stages, and everybody, every supplier, every seller or every service provider, whosoever provides these services, he will be collecting tax from the consumer and paying it to the government. So the shortcoming that it is taxed only at one place, that has also been overcome by saying that the tax will be levied at all stages of the value chain. Now, so far as these shortcomings are concerned, we are complete with that. We understood that these are the shortcomings of the earlier laws, which will be overcome when GST will be implemented. GST is already implemented for the last 3 years. So we will try to find out whether those shortcomings have been cleared or not. There are few shortcomings which have been cleared, but there are still few shortcomings which in 3 years after implementation even we are not able to clear that. So first I will discuss the scope, means on which item GST will be levied, on which item GST is, which of the items are outside the GST laws. As you are aware that GST is applicable on goods or services or both, meaning thereby whether you are supplying goods or you are supplying services or you are supplying any other activity which includes both goods and services, GST will be levied on that. So it is within the scope of GST, all goods or services or both. As it's written in the PPT, as against manufacture, sale or provision of services in earlier regime. In earlier regime, we used to tax on manufacture, central excise duty, on sale, VAT, and on service tax on provision of services. This we were doing earlier. But now we will be levying GST on all goods or services. But he says these supplies must be made for a consideration. Means this must be made for a consideration. Means those goods should not have been supplied as a gift to somebody. If you are supplying as a gift to somebody, you are not receiving any consideration, then there is no problem. Then no GST will be applicable. But he says, if the supply is made for a consideration, means if you have received some payment against that, then GST will be applicable. Except, but will it mean, he wants to tell you, will it mean that it will be applicable for all goods or services? But he says, no, except. He has given an exception. Number one, exempted goods or services, common list for CGST and SGST, means there are certain goods and certain services for which he says no GST will be levied. How we will come to know that on which goods GST is levied and on which goods or services GST is not levied? So he says a list will be prepared of exempted goods as well as exempted services. In that list, we will write down the name of the items or name of the services on which no GST will be applicable. And this list will be common both for SGST as well as for CGST. Now you will ask me, what is this SGST and what is this CGST? So this I will discuss later on, but for the time being, you just understand that exempted list will be prepared and it will be common. The only thing is which we are going to keep it in mind while preparing that list, that under old laws, this list was quite long list. The states, different states were preparing this list having different items, and the list was long. But now in GST, since the law is same throughout the country, therefore the state governments and central government has prepared a list of exempted goods or exempted services, and that list is quite, because if the list is long, then there is a distortion in the application of the act. There is a chain break, and because of that chain break, the people go out of the GST net and they don't pay the tax. And there is a case of more and more tax evasion, and tax base also gets reduced. Therefore, what government said, that exempted items will be minimum as possible. Then he says, there are certain goods or services which will be outside the purview of GST. Now see, again he is saying there are certain goods or services which will be exempted, but exempted goods or services may be taxable tomorrow. Today they may be exempted, tomorrow they may be taxed, or today may be taxable, tomorrow they can be made exempted also. But there are certain goods or services which have been kept outside the purview of GST, meaning thereby no tax will be levied on goods or services which are outside the purview of GST. For example, you know vegetables. If you buy vegetables, fruits, items like this, if you buy from the market, then there is no tax on that. Essential, very, very essential goods which are necessary for life, those have been kept outside the purview of the GST. Then the third is transaction below threshold limit. Now the question is whether GST will be applicable to a very, very small shopkeepers. How they will carry on their business. A small shopkeeper, a small rediwala, small seller, whether he is required to take GST number and he is to collect GST from customers and he is to pay GST to the government. So they said no, nothing doing, don't worry, we will not trouble for this small businessman. So they have fixed a limit that if your turnover during a year is less than that threshold limit, then you will not be covered in GST. That you can carry on the business, even without taking registration under GST. This limit is 20 lakhs in a year. Means if your turnover is less than 20 lakhs a year, then you will not be required to be covered under GST. This 20 lakh limit was earlier 10 lakhs under old regime. Under old regime, this limit used to be 10 lakhs and 5 lakhs in smaller states. 10 lakhs in states like Delhi, and in other states, the turnover used to be 5 lakhs. But now, government has made this limit to 20 lakhs in bigger states and 10 lakhs in the smaller states. So whenever we will come to the chapter of registration, we will discuss in detail. So I am leaving it here itself, that transaction below threshold limit, if your turnover is less than a prescribed limit for a particular state, then you are not covered, you will be outside the scope of the GST. So what is the scope now? We will summarize once again. GST applies to all taxable supplies of goods or services made for a consideration, except exempted goods will be out, goods which are outside, they are not exempted or they are outside. And third is transactions which are less than prescribed limit will not be covered in GST. Next. Now, further, he says that there are few more items. There are few more items which are very important. These items have been kept outside GST. What are those items? Means they are outside GST. He says all goods or services are covered under GST except the following. Alcohol for human consumption. Means wine. You know that in pandemic, whenever the country was opened, different states were opened from lockdown, the first item which was opened was wine shops, because there is a huge consumption of alcohol for human consumption, and there is a maximum tax rate of GST on this item. This item has been kept outside GST and it is taxed under VAT of the state governments. State governments are entitled to collect tax on this, state excise duties and VAT. That was the reason when the different state governments were not having enough money in this COVID-19 lockdown period, when their funds were over, first of all, they opened the wine shops. And you know, there was a huge, long queue before these shops. People were standing in long queues to purchase the wine. And on that wine, certain state governments increased the VAT so that more and more collection can come to them. So this item is still not covered in GST, it is covered in State VAT Act. Meaning thereby, VAT Act has not been withdrawn completely. It has been withdrawn majorly, but so far as alcohol is concerned, VAT Act is still applicable. Then second is electricity. On electricity is still out of GST. Means the electricity duty is charged on that. GST is not applicable in supply of electricity. Third item is real estate. Real estate means on sale of land, building, houses, etc. The state government charges stamp duty, and they also charge house tax, which is called property tax or municipal tax. So stamp duty plus property tax or the municipal tax is being charged by the state governments, and it is also so far kept out of GST. And the fourth item is, which is also very important, you must be aware, petroleum products. That is the petrol. You are aware that immediately after lockdown, there was huge sale of petrol, and on petrol they increased duty also. It is outside GST. It has not been brought in GST. But although petroleum product prices are very low where from the petrol is coming, but still government increased their duty on that, increased taxes on that, and still petrol is getting costlier every day. Because once you bring this in GST, then entire ITC will be allowed to be set off against the output liability, and things become cheaper in the hands of the customer. But government does not want it. That is why these are the four items on which the state governments did not agree to bring it under the umbrella of GST. They said no, for the time being, in the initial stage, we will not include these four items into the GST. And you know, on all these four items, the collection of tax for the states is 60%. 60% of state government revenue comes from these four items only. That is the reason why state governments in the initial stage of implementation of GST did not agree to be included in GST. Hence, what is the scope of GST? Scope of GST means it applies to all taxable supplies of goods or services except exempted goods, except goods or services outside the purview of GST. And what are those 4 items which are written on the next slide, which I have already discussed with you. And then transaction below the threshold limit. And finally, there is one more item, which is tobacco products, bidi, cigarette, cigar. You know, this is also an item on which there is also it is covered under GST, but with the highest rate, 28%. And along with that, central government levies central excise duty on this item, ranging from 64% to 81%. This is done to reduce the consumption. The government wants that these items should be less consumed because these are not good for health. That is why a huge central excise duty is imposed apart from GST at the rate of highest rate of 28%. The government wants that alcohol as well as tobacco product should be, their consumption should be reduced. That is why high rate of taxes have been kept and alcohol has been kept outside the state, outside GST, so that their price should not come down. So this is the scope of GST, on which item it will be levied, on which item it will not be levied. So far as petroleum products are concerned, it is written in the constitution when we brought out the amendment to levy GST. It was written in the constitution itself that petroleum products will be covered under GST as and when GST Council will decide. What is GST Council? We will discuss in the subsequent lectures. When they will decide, how they can decide, what is to be decided, how to be decided, that is decided by GST Council. GST Council is a council, consists of all the finance ministers of all the states. So today I will be telling you this much only in brief, not the other things. So we discussed shortcomings, particularly relating to ITC. And then thereafter, what is the scope of GST? What items are covered in GST? What items are left from GST? And why? Main important thing is why they are left. The reason is that maximum tax comes from those 4 items to state governments. Therefore, initially, state government said, no, we will agree for GST only if you keep all these 4 items out of GST. And whenever we will satisfy in future that our earnings are intact, our earlier taxes are being paid by the central government out of the collections, then only we will decide in future when these 4 items will be covered in GST. Otherwise, if we will take it out in GST, our income will go down, our revenue will go down, and we will not be happy about it. So they did not include it at this stage. After a few years, after 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, they may be brought into GST, but still those are outside GST. So I just wanted to know, are you able to understand?